you said something really interesting about just obeying in advance and those kinds of things. I've been a little bit shocked at Zuckerberg, Bezos.
The behavior, we'll call them the broligarchs because they are tech bros. So that's where it comes from, like the tech bros. This is power and money, and just straight out power and money building what I hope doesn't happen, which is a kleptocracy. And Applebaum calls it an autocracy, but this is power and money. And I think what you're seeing is the obeying in advance. I think it started with Elon Musk was way up front, and then Mark Zuckerberg followed by taking away fact checking at the start of the year, right?
And they're not obeying, by the way. I think they agree. I don't even think, I think they like it this way. I think they like a unitary executive that agrees with them that there's only a certain class of people that should control all aspects of society. I would say this theory of strongman is something that they're very positive about. I don't even see it as obeying. I think they've gotten permission to be who they are.
And lastly, before I take questions, I would like to commend the Washington Post, who I believe is in the room today. According to a new report from Axios, the Washington Post is overhauling their newsroom structure. It appears that the mainstream media, including the Post, is finally learning that having disdain for more than half of the country who supports this president does not help you sell newspapers. It's not a very good business model.
Donald Trump has done a phenomenal job of turning his supporters against media organizations, to the point where nobody's even really batting an eye about Tim Pool, of all people, being added to the press pool when the Associated Press itself is barred. It's looking increasingly likely that the Trump administration and its mouthpiece, Carolyn Leavitt, are going to fully do away from tradition and ensure that only the most sycophantic and well-behaved figures will be seated front row, and questions will be reserved for people who will never, ever challenge power whatsoever.
The feeding frenzy of the liberal Capitol Hill press corps, which are not just liberal reporters, they're liberal political activists.
Yeah, explain how that's
lobbyists.
changed in your mind. You mentioned it during the break, commercial break, that it's a change in the way they're acting. They were always liberal, but what's happening now?
They're more aggressive now. They're not just asking questions of senators. They're following people down the hall. They're shouting out things. They're speaking with a sense of urgency that reveals a complete lack of journalistic objectivity. Make no mistake, Laura, these people are activists.
There's a lot the FCC can do. Broadcasters are differently situated than other speakers. They get free access to a valuable public resource, the airwaves, and they're licensed by the FCC. And the exchange for that is they have to serve the public interest. I think it's important that we take another look at that and we reinvigorate it. There's also a news distortion complaint at the FCC still having to do with CBS, and CBS has a transaction before the FCC. And I'm pretty confident that news distortion complaint over the CBS 60 Minutes transcript is something that's likely to arise in the context of the FCC's review of that transaction.
It sounds like the argument you're making, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that the FCC in the previous administration was acting against, or at least looking into, conservative media inappropriately, and that you want to right the ship by inappropriately looking into liberal media.
What I'm saying is the FCC is a place...
No, but really, that's not what you're doing.
What I'm saying is the FCC is a place that operates by case law and by precedent.
Yeah.
And these cases and precedent that were developed over the last 4 years were apparently not controversial when the Democrats were in charge, and I'm surprised that applying the same precedents is now considered controversial.
But you thought, you said at the time, you thought they were partisan and inappropriate, basically, right?
There are things that the FCC does that once they do them, that creates the precedent, that creates the case law, that creates the thing that the FCC is supposed to follow. What we're doing right now is following the law that the FCC has developed over the last 4 years. So I'm surprised that it's controversial now, but wasn't then.
It's funny. When I talk to, I feel like I'm being trolled here. And when I talk to...
By me?
Yes. And when I
People rarely call me a troll.
Actually, it's funny because I did talk to a lot of your friends and enemies in preparing for this. And one thing that all of your friends and your critics alike said was, this is a really smart guy, good lawyer, really pleasant to work with, whether you're a Democrat or Republican.
Apparently.
Didn't get into your physical appearance. But that when they look at your kind of public presence on cable, on social media, that you're kind of bombastic and trolly. You talk about shock and awe for the swamp, patriot versus patriotic Americans, and they wonder if it's performative for the president.
I watch this MSNBC, which is a threat to democracy, actually. They're stone cold mean, but they're stuttering. They're all screwed up. They're all mentally screwed up. They don't know what. Their ratings have gone down the tubes. I don't even talk about CNN. CNN's sort of like, I don't know, they're pathetic, actually. But MSNBC was mean. Their ratings are absolutely down. This Rachel Maddow, what does she have? She's got nothing. Nothing. She took a sabbatical where she worked 1 day a week. They paid her a lot of money. She gets no ratings. I should go against her in the ratings because I'll tell you, she gets no ratings. All she does is to talk about Trump, 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 Trump. All different subjects, Trump this, Trump that. But these people are really, I mean, they lie. They shouldn't be allowed to lie every night. They are really a vehicle of the Democrat Party.
It is not news for me to tell you that the press and freedom of the press are under attack in a way that is really, it's a big deal for our country. It's very visceral for us here. I know that the business of the press is not an easy thing, and I know that no job is forever. But I think I'm safe in saying for all of us anchors who you know through the TV, please know that what pains us the most is not what happens to us. It is what happens to our coworkers on whom we depend and who you don't necessarily know, but we respect and love them and depend on them. And did I mention we respect them? This is a difficult time in the news business, but it does not need to be this difficult.
It's a terrifying reality, but there is a non-zero chance that this administration will continue to push its authority well past what the Constitution allows and will actively suppress speech that's either critical of the administration or not perfectly in line with their increasingly fascistic ideology. As Jon Stewart said, tech bros seem keen to reshape society in a way that subjugates us and diminishes our humanity. Now, we've already seen pro-Palestine speech being silenced and criminalized, and by the way, this administration is now throwing the word terrorist around on a daily basis in a way that would be comical if it wasn't so utterly dystopian. But what's important for all of us to do, though, is to watch how media companies and journalists and hosts and pundits are responding. Because right now, we're largely free to continue to criticize Donald Trump or Elon Musk. So the people capitulating in advance have no excuse, really. In the end, the biggest tell isn't just what the government's doing, it's who's rolling over before they even have to. Right now, there's still room to push back, to call this out for what it is. If people with platforms, though, choose to play along instead, that's not even really fear, it's just complicity. It's sad. They're making it more dangerous for the rest of us.